Welcome back to Growing Up Late. No one is coming to save you. That's the good news. Now you're free. I didn't marry a white knight. I invented one. I invested heavily in the narrative of my white knight for many, many years. It was easy enough to do, and it seemed harmless. It's interesting, we both came from Boston, but he had a much stronger accent than I did. So, in our community and amongst our friends, that accent paired with the fact that he never worked and never talked about ever having worked, it made it easy for people to make up a lot of stories about him. And I didn't think it was harmful. I kind of liked these fanciful stories. They saw him the way I wanted him to be, as a hero. He always came out looking pretty good in these stories, and he was a great storyteller. So, our life, as I've started to tell you, was a pretty beautiful one. We have 5 children at this point, and we decided to buy this beautiful home because it reminded us a lot of the homes in Boston. A big red brick house, the kind of home that you'd raise your children in and play with your grandchildren in, and eventually someone would always live in that house from your family. It was a legacy home. But it was built in 1875, and along with that, when we first moved in, came all the joys of living in the actual year 1875. Oh my gosh, when we first got there, if you plugged in a coffee maker and a toaster at the same time, legend has it, everything else went out, the lights, the whole shebang. So we had a little bit of work to do when we first moved in. We took care of it, but I remember it was nearly a week before we had air conditioning, and it was late July or August. So it was pretty miserable, but it was all worth it for our dream home. Eventually, it all got resolved. We threw magnificent parties in that house. It was perfect for it. We gathered large groups of people on many occasions, always a good time. We hosted Sunday brunches out by the pool on the patio, and they were so much fun. We even hosted a gathering of all the women in my company that the president of the company attended. And I remember him admiring the house, saying that it was a real kind of a legacy home. We were very happy there for a very long time. And I remember at some point, we decided a house like that always needs something. So we would take out a home equity loan. It was a pretty sizable amount at the time, but we had it and it made sense with our lifestyle. The money would be on hand, not only for any repairs for the house, but, a home equity loan is the best way to maybe buy a car. You're borrowing the money from yourself. It makes a lot of financial sense. So anyhow, it was a pretty easy sell for us to get that. I don't recall us ever using it for anything. We certainly never talked about it. But of course, he managed the money and we just didn't discuss it. We didn't discuss financial matters very much. Life went on. We had everything we needed always. I guess I didn't inquire. I was too busy working. I worked a lot. At some point, I can't remember when, I decided I wanted to buy a new car. I think I flat out just needed one. I mean, I was raised in a family that believed in not being very showy, in not, I don't know, just we were understated. It was mentioned to me that maybe I should have a car that matched my career. And I needed a car anyways, so I went car shopping. And I decided I would give the bank a call and use the home equity loan to purchase the car I wanted. And when I did, I found out that the home equity loan was maxed. Every dime of it already out. That seemed odd to me. I mean, like I said, I can't remember a thing we would have used it for. No major purchases, no large expenses, no big expensive trips or cars or any of the things that you would have thought we would use that kind of money for. So that little nagging feeling that had popped up from time to time just started really talking to me. And by the time I got home that night, I was uneasy. It was definitely time for a talk. Came home late, and I remember walking up the long, winding staircase to where my office was and finding my husband there. And that was where he would handle the bills and take care of all that. So, good place to have this conversation. And I asked, I called the bank. There's no money. Our home equity loan is maxed. And I was planning on buying a new car. We had talked about me buying a new car. And he was like, well, we'll just go get a car loan. That's what people do. And I pressed. Okay, but where did that money go? And he kind of rolled his eyes and heavy sigh and like, Jeannie, don't trouble yourself with these things. Everything's fine. Just, we'll do it another way. What are you worried about? Why do you care? I'm like, well, it just occurs to me that we never have conversations about money. We never argue about money. I hear couples arguing about money all the time. We never did. So I kind of liked that about us, And so I wasn't really interested in getting into an argument about money, but I felt I had a right, and at this point, kind of a need to know. So I pressed. I remember pressing, and I just thought, good grief, just get a QuickBooks account. Like, show me a bank statement. I just want to understand what goes in, which I know pretty much, right? It's my salary. And, we had investments and 401k and all the things. So what comes in every month and what goes out? Just the basics, just a really simple ledger. Like I said, QuickBooks, a bank statement, online bank statement, anything would do. He did not appreciate my pressing. I just remember him like walking over to me. I was standing in the doorway, kind of between two rooms. I think I had backed away a little bit because I felt like I'd made a reasonable request and I didn't understand where all this resistance was coming from. It just didn't make sense. Like, this was simple stuff. I remember saying, like, this should be a pretty easy matter. Like, I'm not asking you to give me a financial statement with every little detail. I just want the basics, big picture. Where does our money come from and where does it go? Because it wasn't adding up. And he walked over to me very earnestly and just put his hands on my shoulders, looked me in the eyes, and just said, babe, don't you love me? Don't you trust me? The response just, I don't know. I mean, we were married, we were happy, we had a great life. Of course, I love you. Of course, I trust you. I remember getting a great big bear hug from him, and it was like, well, thank goodness that's all settled. But it wasn't really all settled for me. But I knew I was making a choice. I was choosing love. I was choosing comfort over truth, you know? I mean, I had invested everything in this man. He was my life. I had outsourced everything, my financial management, my security, my happiness. It was all, I put my happiness in someone else's pocket. And it was definitely a choice. And I felt it, just a little twinge that I had betrayed myself. It was me doing that. And, you know, the hug helped, but it didn't fix everything. And I guess looking back, it was in that moment that I began to grasp what was happening. I became aware and I made a decision to push that aside, to push that awareness aside and just move on down the road. So when the collapse came, a little part of me knew I had invested a lot of time, energy, belief, passion into my white knight. And when the chips were down, he was nowhere to be found. I had been comfortably asleep. But the pain of this collapse, it woke me up. It woke me up. And you know what? I guess it needed to happen. I'm glad I didn't stay asleep. I'm glad that today I I manage my money. I manage my finances. I'm responsible for the joy and the sorrow in my life. I make my own decisions. I no longer outsource my happiness. It's right here with me all the time. I guess I feel like it was all worth it. And I remember not long after my marriage ended, I went to one of those Christmas gift swappy things where you get to open present and steal from someone else, and then it can only be stolen twice, and I can never remember the rules, and there's usually a silly game that you have to play with it. But there was this plaque, and I really wanted it because it said she needed a hero, so that's what she became. And that plaque is still in my kitchen today, but it doesn't quite fit my situation. I know that what sounds truer for me is she needed a hero, so that's what she became, but not before she gave everything away trying to find one. So, if you will join me next week, I will share the decision I made and the transformation that occurred in my life. Because today, as I said, I am in charge of my happiness, my money, my joy, everything. And I help other women do that too. That is one of the greatest joys of my life. If you've ever outsourced any of the good stuff in your life, and you might be willing to get on a journey of reclaiming that, I hope you will join me next week when I share a little bit more about what came next. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate you taking this journey with me and growing up late.